What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we're going to be reviewing the much talked about, long time missing from my collection, glad to have it back, HeroQuest game system. This reprint is published by Avalon Hill. The original game was designed by Stephen Baker. He is not credited on the box. A little bit disappointed there. Avalon Hill should be doing a better job, even if he designed this for you guys 30 years ago. And on that note, Julie's now going to take it away and tell you more about the game itself.
So this is a cooperative game that can be played 1 to 4 players if you're playing with the app, or 2 to 5 if you're not.
One player gets to be Zargon and control all of the enemies and be sort of like a game master.
It says it plays in about 60 to 90 minutes, probably plays in 90 or more since we played it in about 90, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And it says for ages 14 and above, though we think it can be played a lot younger.
I would say you can probably get away, especially if you've got adults helping their children play. I'd say you're probably looking at maybe even the 6 to 7-year-old. The game is very much move, action, action, move, which does make it very easy to get to the table with a younger audience. Now, what will you be doing in the game? Well, it depends on the quest. In this quest that we've got set up, we are trying to save the Knight Ragnar. You will always be on the same board. The board and what is in each room and what rooms are accessible will change depending on the quest. What you will do is you're going to roll the move. You'll move your character, you're going to open the door, and then the app or Zargon will start populating the board with enemies, doors that you can go through as you progress through the game. Now, one of the things that's very important about the game is that opening a door does not take an action. So play strategically, move towards the door and open it, probably when you have another action left, but that is entirely up to you. Also, line of sight is blocked by heroes, as well as heroes can block doors and things like that. So plan your movement strategically, otherwise you might find yourself not being able to do much on your turn. Now, did I miss anything, Julie?
Well, there's a little bit of combat. I don't know that you talked about that.
Well, of course, it's a dungeon crawl, so yes, Zargon will be placing things, so you might be spawning monsters, and then you're going to be rolling dice to spawn monsters. You'll be searching for traps, treasure, and trying to power up your hero, which is only done through items in this game. So as you get more gold, once you find items, your heroes will become stronger to take on even more difficult challenges. And the way that each quest will end will also be dependent on the one that you're playing. Sometimes you may need to move all the heroes out of the dungeon. You may only need to move one character or find something in the dungeon itself. The game will tell you. All right, so now I think we've got everything.
Now we're going to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend and fellow adventurer. We'll take it to the table one more time. Now we're going to take a quick look at the components for HeroQuest. Please note we do not have any of the Hasbro Pulse exclusives, and even though we've got some of the expansions, we're really just taking a look at what you get for the core box. Now, I've got a few things off camera that we'll take a quick look at. So you do also get the HeroQuest quest book, which will be used by Zargon, which will help you, guide people through the quests. You get the stories, the background. Then, as you can see, you've got the map right here for Quest 1, the trial, an explanation as to how things will show up. I don't want to really spoil anything, so we just took a quick peek at that. You also have the rule book with Zargon on the cover, and it's very straightforward, fairly easy to go through. You got a glimpse into the world of HeroQuest, some background, how to play the quest, explaining, movement, what you can and can't do, line of sight, and really no complaints with regards to the rulebook. Everything is right there, and it is well put together. For Zargon, you do get a Dungeon Master screen. You've got the details of the monsters that are on the back, example of combat, and just some summaries that you may need while you are running the game. And then next you'll get a pad with some hero sheets, like this, where you'll fill out like either the name of your character, your name to make sure you know who's playing them. You can track your attack dice, defend dice, body points, weapons, armor, gold coins, and the amount of quests you have completed. Now take a look at some of the other components that we've got here. So we'll start with the hero miniatures. We've got the wizard, dwarf, elf, and the the barbarian. Now, I'm not going to lift up every miniature. That would just delay us a little bit. But I want to show you you've got the 4 hero cards, which have all of their stats on them that you need to know. And then on the back, you just get a little bit of background as to the character and how they play. This is the what you turn order card, essentially what you do on your turn. So just a nice, quick reference card for players. And the other player item here are the 4 spell decks, which are the 4 sets of elemental spells. The elf will get 1, the wizard will get the other 3. The way I've always played is that the 2 spell schools, which is water and rock, which have the healing spells, usually the elf gets one of those, and the wizards will take the other one. There you have it. You can see the different spell schools on the back. So that's everything then related to the player. Now, I will lift up some of the miniatures. Probably going to take a look at the enemy miniatures in a little bit more detail because you do get a couple new sculpts in this set. But when it comes to the furniture, I'm not going to lift up everything. You get a good look at most of it there. So here we've got just the Gargoyle Varag. So he's one of the named enemies. We've got an Evil Sorcerer miniature. Here we then have the skeletons, which do only have 1 sculpt. We have a zombie, the mummy, and I've got a couple of these skulls that are on this that looks like they were to be, like punched out. But as we've yet to get to a point in the game where we've needed them, I've just left them like that. As far as yet to make sure I don't lose them. Here we've got the miniature for the Abomination. It looks very cool. We've got 4 different sculpts of orc, which I think are pretty cool. It does help organize stuff, but the orcs really just have the, when it comes to the card and what you'll be seeing on the app, there's really just 1 classic sculpt. I do like the fact that we've got male and female orcs. One of the nice things from the Hasbro Pulse stuff is that you did end up getting male and female versions of all of the characters. And then when it comes to the goblins, you do have 2 sculpts as well. So just another nice little difference. Now you can primarily see most of the detail on the stuff. Like this is a tomb. I love the fact that it does open up. The doors, the 3D doors, really got a kick out of them. Have a lot of nice detail. The fireplace looks absolutely fantastic. And then when it comes to what we've got here that you can't really see, you've got one which is a chest, well, like an armoire, and the other which is a bookshelf. And just since you can't see it, I'll just lift up the weapons rack because I think it looks pretty cool as well. Now we've got a whole slew of different tokens here. Now I'm not quite sure what some of them do. I think this is for Zargon. This represents a forge. This could be just a blockage in the wall. You've got some of these smaller ones, or even a couple double and triple ones that you can use as well. We've got a stone tablet here that you've got to assemble and put together, and it actually does fit together well, but I just wanted to showcase that. You've got some doors, some rubble, or these traps, rubble's here. You've got the secret door behind it, and then you've got some different trap tokens. Now we're not taking a look at all of the tokens because there's quite a few of them, and not all of them are quite clear offhand, and as we haven't seen or used them in a quest, I just left them off to the side, but you get a good idea. When you open the door as well with the 3D doors, here is the open door, meaning you can go through. And then we'll take a look at the decks of cards, and then we'll get on to our review. So you've got the treasure cards, which can be jewels, potions, wandering monsters, gold, all sorts of stuff that you can find in the dungeon. You're never going to really find any items besides like potions and heroic brew. Everything else is just going to turn into gold, and gold will then allow you to buy stuff from the equipment deck, so upgrade yourself like getting a longsword, holy water, some better armor, and that's really how you're going to be upgrading your character through the game. The battle axe with 4 combat dice, get some plate mail, and a lot of this stuff is fairly expensive, so you will not be buying it until later on in the campaign. Here we've got some of the enemy stuff. So we've got just the representation cards for the monsters. If you are using the app, you will not need these as the details are contained within. Then you've got the dread spells, which can be used by Zargon at certain points during the game. And I believe he gets access to more and more of these later on as you play through. And then you've got the artifacts, which can be found as you're questing through the game. So you got some great armors, Rod of Telekinesis, Fortune's Longsword, Orc's Bane, Phantom Blade. So all this stuff you'll find as you're going through the game, and it'll make you even more powerful. So like this Wizard Staff, it glows. It can be used only by the wizard, giving them 2 attack dice and the ability to attack diagonally, which makes choke points in this game, as you can see on the map here, even deadlier. If you got an enemy stuck here, you got your dwarf here and the wizard that's here, or here, they can attack diagonally, meaning 2 characters can attack 1. So there you have it. We're taking a look at most of the components for the game. That gives you a good idea. Oh, wait, before we run away, we've got the dice, 2 6-sided dice for movement, and then you've got the custom dice, which just means hit. This means you defend, and the black shield is the monster's defense. So now we've covered everything, and keep it right here as Julie and I will be coming back at you with our review of the game. So Julie, at last, we've gotten the HeroQuest game system to the table. You've heard me talk about it. You've heard my brother talk about it. I started out with dungeon crawls with this game. You started out with the Ascent 2nd Edition. So a lot further down the line. What are those games? Probably about 25 years, 20-something years removed. So it's going to be an interesting review here. What did you think of this game system?
Well, I don't have a lot of positives to say. I mean, I'm not going to bash it. It's not broken. We've played some pretty awful games. This is not an awful game. I just think if ever I had insomnia, I could start playing this game and it put me to sleep.
Well, we just want to clarify where we've gone to the game. I played the game a couple times with my brother, and we got through the first 2 quests. Now, we're reviewing this at that point because we have decided not to continue on with the game, and we'll get into that in more detail. The game is not leaving the collection, however, and we're going to talk about that because there's some good reasons for us to keep it. But for us to play the game with our experience and what we like, this just does not hit the spot at all.
Yeah, there's just, I mean, to have to basically go through the motions a couple of times was, because basically you just have to continue on, basically what's going to happen, but in order to finish the quest, you basically just have to exit, or, you can see right away, like in this case, if, you see what on the board, we just basically held up the monsters. There's no way the goblin could kill the barbarian, so, he could poke away at me all he wanted. He wasn't going to kill me. There's also this, we played it with the app. I thought that might help. The app glitched.
Yep, we did have a glitch with the app when we were trying to undo something because we just had neglected the fact that the wizard needed healing. And Julie pointed out, she goes, "Oh, why didn't you tell me?" And I tried to undo what was going on with the app. Wasn't able to, so we had to restart the mission. The inability to save during the app is a little annoying. Also, the fact that the app is locked to portrait mode and cannot go to landscape mode, even when you're using an iPad, is another thing that I did not like whatsoever.
There's no adaptability to the app. Yeah.
Device.
I really didn't love, I think I talked about recently what I love in dungeon crawls, in one of our recent videos, and this doesn't have any of that. The loot that you pick up, at least the loot that I got, I kept getting monsters. It's pretty high in monsters, at least from what I can see, because I got traps and monsters 3/4 of the time.
When we look at the treasure deck, it's, there's some good stuff in there, but one monster.
So basically, every time I picked, I would get a trap or a monster. I got twice 25 gold, and rest of the time Jason got some. But you're not even talking great loot. There was other dungeon crawls like Descent, where you could
especially the new one.
You could pick up some pretty awesome gear. Yes, there's some bad stuff that happens too. But at this point, I was like, really? Do I really want to search? It's there's not much upgradability to the characters. They're kind of...
The characters are the characters. You get your character card. This is your character. You are going to upgrade them with the gear and stuff that you can potentially buy or find if you find some special artifact equipment, which will come down the line in later quests. Now, that being said, you need to enjoy your experience to get there. And as Julie was mentioning, like with the barbarian, who's definitely a tanky hero, if you've got the elf or the wizard just following behind, who can basically constantly heal them. Also, the fact that you've got these long corridors, which are one square wide, you can definitely use choke points because characters cannot move diagonally. Now that is something that happened a lot and was really popular back in the 80s. We've seen that that's no longer the case. It does still happen in some games, but you got a choke point here, you've got a healer, and you've got a goblin that's trying to wail on you. You can really just hold up all the enemies and then get to the quest objective. Now that does mean that, for example, we weren't able to explore this part of the dungeon, get some gold, get some stuff that might let us upgrade our gear faster, but we were able to complete the objective. And at least with the first two quests, and because of the design of the board, I think we both found it just a little too easy. It kind of was a little bit of a snooze fest. Now, that being said, if you're playing a dungeon crawl for the first time, or you're taken to a friend's house and everyone's running around doing their own thing, well, it can definitely be very chaotic. But if you're playing it, like we do, because we play a lot of dungeon crawls, and we know one of the rules is keep the party together or be able to get back together rather quickly, it made the game very easy.
Yeah, I mean, when you pulled out the board, I'm like, haven't I played this game before? Because it looks a lot like a game we've played, which
is Alter Quest, which is based on HeroQuest in terms of using one board and the map, and then the different quests happen on that same board, but stuff spawns differently.
Yeah, and honestly, you want to make this more fun. I see a Lord of the Rings style where the orc standing behind the goblin gets frustrated at the choke point and kills the goblin. And then the orc gets through and attacks you. That would make it a little bit more entertaining, but that's not what happens in this case. And so, I mean,
we have only played with the app too, by the way, so it could be a little different with a game master and adding in some house rules to scale it up and down. This is a 30-year-old game. There's a lot of homemade content out there for it if you care to go try and find it.
Yeah, bottom line, we're reviewing the game that's in the box and with the app, and I'm not there. I wouldn't even recommend it to new gamers. That's not, unless like
this is your first dungeon crawl.
Not even if this is your first dungeon crawl, I'd start you on Descent, not on this. Honestly, there's other ways, other dungeon crawls now. I think the only reason this makes sense is because you've got that history with it. And I think the reason, honestly, that you want to keep it in the collection and you want to play with the little guy is more nostalgia than anything else.
I think it's nostalgia and accessibility because this game is very easy to teach. It's very easy to play. Zargon will have the most work if you are playing a one versus many game, but other than that, the game is very much take an action, roll the dice to move if you so choose, or roll the dice to move and then take an action. Now, the level of strategy that you then use, something that we've learned, for example, like don't open the door when you can't take an action. When you do things like that, it downgrades the difficulty of the game by a significant margin because you're being a little, well, not overly strategic. You're just playing, very smart, and that hinders the game system from really smacking you in the face.
I know you say you love the table presence, and I'll let you talk to it. For me, it's just like, it's okay. We've got other games that have better table presence.
You're spoiled with Legends of the Dark, but when we go back and we take a look at even Descent 2nd edition, like we don't have necessarily all the nice chests and all the 3D level of like components. We have these 3D doors, which were upgrades that we purchased for some games. So that's where I'm saying I like the table presence because what you get in the box does pop very much so. And when you're going back 30 years, it was definitely very much a standout because nothing quite popped like this at the time. Now, there are some quest packs that we've not played that may make the game more difficult and more challenging. There are some more heroes that you can get. If you got all the Hasbro Pulse content, you can get some cool stuff as well. But I'm leaning more towards Julie. Like, I want to play this with the little guy. I think this is a good family dungeon crawl because of the level of accessibility. And I think it can be something infectious fun if he's having a good time with this. If we're playing and not, being like, hey, like, be overly strategic, we might get into some tougher, crazier spots and have some good fun with this. But am I going to play this instead of taking out and continuing Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, playing the latest campaign? No. Is this going to go to the table before Descent, Legends of the Dark? No. Is this going to get to the table before a game that doesn't need an app to be played co-op, such as Folklore the Affliction, or we've got Tainted Grail and Defiance, which you haven't even touched yet? Probably not, unfortunately. So I think that just for us, where we are at, there are other games that we'd rather play that are constantly going to go above the HeroQuest game system. But as a little guy gets a little older, and he's a couple years old now, when he's 5, 6, this is the kind of game that he probably would be able to play depending on his attention span. I think the other issue that we both had with this is the game drags. Now, I saw that some people say that the game goes usually about an hour. I'd say in our experience, each game is probably about 90 minutes. And that goes to the roll and move and a couple other things that can really slow you down. You get some good rolls. They can go faster. You get some really junk rolls. Well, guess what? It's going to be dragging in the other direction. I think a question I have for you, Julie, since this is a reprint and a reissue of the game, should they have refined the game system? Should they have tweaked it a little bit to make it a little bit more modern? Would that have
so in my opinion, yes. I'm sure there are some purists out there that, and I'm sure your initial reaction would have been, no, don't touch it. But I think, having played now this version, I'd say maybe I would have had a little bit more fun with it if they'd updated the gameplay a little bit.
Actually, my initial response is when they said they were doing a full reprint of HeroQuest, my original response was like, great, why don't they keep the original rulebook and put it in, but why don't they update it for the times? Because I was worried that the game could feel dated, and it does. And that works well for certain players. That works well for players that I think have analysis paralysis and other situations. But like I looked at a couple posts on Board Game Geek, saw some people talking about playing it purely solo. That it really just is a drag, and definitely if you know what every character is going to do, this is not going to give you a great solo game experience. Just going to be way too much on the easy side. And I think a couple of tweaks, such as different things to do for a move, like maybe you've got a standard base movement every turn, plus a die that you roll to enhance your movement. Just a couple of things like that would have just made the game flow a little bit better, because I'd like to have a more smooth experience. That being said, though, the game is easy to set up, easy to take out, and it's easy to put on the table. So if you do want to carry this to your friend's house, you can definitely do that and introduce some less experienced gamers to this game. One thing Julie can't comment on was the packaging and taking out of the box. I can tell you right now that the vacuum packaging was just a little too much. Not easy to get the stuff back in, and this is a giant box, which is great, so the vacuum packaging is going to get chucked. Everything's going to be organized based on the expansions, and I'll be able to get everything that's come out in this one giant box. It's another reason to keep it in the collection, because it's easy to sort, easy to store, and we'll be able to get it out in a couple of years. But our campaign's deleted. We're not going to get this back to the table. And I don't think it's a terrible game, but it's a game that definitely shows its age. It's a 30-year-old game, plays like a 30-year-old game, feels like a 30-year-old game. So what I loved 30 years ago before playing video games, playing RPG video games, and playing the next generation of dungeon crawls, which are continually getting better and better, I like the nostalgia, but even I can see that it's maybe not up to par these days.
You want my rating first?
Yeah, go ahead. Give it your rating.
It's a 5.
Well, I'm going to give this a 6 because it's a pass, because it is exactly what it set out to be. It is HeroQuest reiterated with some nice, updated miniatures board presence. And I'm very happy to have this in my collection because my other version of the game disappeared mysteriously. So upset about that. Would probably still be playing it at that point, because I know my brother and I would have definitely got to the table at least to get through it. But it just gets by. And I think taking your score and my score to give a channel score of about 5.5 is probably where the game kind of deserves to be. My nostalgia is only pushing it up just a little bit. I did not have the most fun with this. I definitely felt a drag every time I played and was a little bored.
Okay, so on that note, it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
Take a look down below in the video description. You'll find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see some pictures of Julie and I playing HeroQuest, I know I've been behind. I will be getting a bunch of pictures out, so you should definitely start checking them out if you haven't seen us for a while. Check out those feeds. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release, and in front of Julie will take you back to our review of Descent Legends of the Dark. And if you're more experienced gamers, I definitely think that's where you should start for a dungeon crawl.
So on that note, we're going to grab our drinks.
I'll grab our best friend, especially if you have an app. If you want to play with the app, check out Legends of the Dark. I'm going to remind you to keep playing games.